Sports and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-G-L-E-S,
Swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Ooh, good morning, Joe. It's well,
Morning, Don.
if you looked at the weather outside, you might think it's still spring
Good.
and not on the verge of being June. It's going to be a little 50s and rainy this weekend. Might get some,
Yeah.
you might get some potential sunlight on Sunday afternoon.
Potential.
Some
Yeah.
potential. As I would tell Lace sometimes, like, you know, when I'm saying stuff that doesn't make sense, I'm like, it's like a maybe, always, sometimes, often kind of thing.
That sounds about right when it comes to the weather. You know,
Right?
Flip a
Oh
coin.
my God!
Flip a
Listen,
coin.
for you and I talked last Saturday. We kind of went through the I'm Rich is on the young dad duty, right? Driving the kids to and from birthday parties. He's I'm curious, Joe, for when we get Joe, when we get Rich back on, to have Rich take a look at our list, the list of how we ranked the opposing quarterbacks from the teams that the Eagles are going to play, and we kind of landed on like Mahomes, Josh Allen. We talked about Jalen Hurts in that, somewhere in between Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, and sometimes that's, I bet that's going to be. If I had to bet, that's probably going to be his biggest argument, because, and the more I thought about it, right, like Jalen Hurts has beat Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts has beat and outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. He's outplayed Matthew Stafford. He's outplayed, like he is outplayed. He's won
All the top guys.
those games, right? The stats might not look, right, but like at the end of the day, he's a guy that just wins, right? He does what he does. And I know there's a little bit of rumblings that, like, with Kevin Patullo, the swing might be to look to, dive a little bit deeper into the passing game. And you have the weapons to do so. I think this year might be about finding the balance between the run game and the pass game. I think you're going to have some options in the run game. You add another weapon to the quad squad and in AJ Dillon, right? You keep him healthy. You take, maybe Saquon Barkley doesn't need to have nearly as many touches as he has, but I think, Joe, in a season where he runs for over 2,000 yards, even if you get a 75% of what you got last year, that's still like 1,600 yards.
Yeah.
It's still really, really, really good production. But yeah, I'm curious when Rich gets a chance to take a look at this list. I'm curious to see, where he kind of lands on some of these guys. But still a pretty busy time for the Eagles. Anything that you gleaned out of the reports from OTAs?
Just the parts that I've seen and the news that I've have heard and seen coming out of there. Jordan Davis looks leaner, looks faster. I think he's, it's a 1 year prove it kind of thing.
Yeah.
for him. So whether he's here or he's going to get a deal somewhere else, he's ready to roll. And then Makuba, the safety from Texas, they're basically like, this is your job to lose. So, he's taken the first team reps on defense. So, just those two guys. I'm interested to see how healthy and how soon he can be healthy 100% of Nakobe Dean. That's going to be huge for our linebacking core to have him back as soon as we can. But those two guys, and then hey man, how about our guy, the Vanilla Gorilla?
Yeah. All right. So here's some of the things I thought. Right, like seeing the videos of Ty Robinson. He looks every ounce of a guy who's ready to step in and be really, really productive. I think and we'll talk about the news that came out yesterday. I want to dive a little deeper into the Josh Huff news. Never met a guy who had a number more fitting than 0. Joe, you know what, Joe? For the next hour, here we go. Who had a better Eagles career, Josh Huff or Frank Gore? Like, I just the my curiosity with the way, like, this defense is going to be really young. You've got a bunch. They channeled the off season a little bit differently, right? You have got a lot of guys here, who are on the 1 year prove it kind of. I look at their depth chart and I go, I'm curious to see how the edge plays out, right? Because you do coming from last year, right? You're going to lose 3 bodies, right? And those snaps, although not nearly as productive, because you get Josh Huff was a 0, literally. That those jokes are just never going to get.
Oh man, it's always going to be great.
But, like, you have Nolan Smith and you have Felix Hunt, right? And you have a lot of other guys, right? You've got Josh Uche, right, is a guy who has had mild success in some other spots. You have God, Joe, who's the guy I'm thinking of? Ojulari,
who
right?
was on the Giants. Yeah,
You have a guy that, like, if he's in, like, right now, Jalix Hunt and Nolan Smith are the 2 guys that I kind of pencil in on the edge.
right.
So if Azeez Ojulari is a guy who, when we saw in limited snaps, in his time at the Giants when he was healthy, was like a guy who was really, really productive. If he's your third guy and he's getting 20, 25 snaps a game,
Right.
right? If he can give you, good production, I think I like it. In the defensive back, Makuba looks. I mean, listen, we're watching reporters' social media videos to try to glean anything from this, but everything that I saw, a guy that looks really fluid, guy that looks really is able to is running to the ball. The one video I saw was like the peanut punch, drill, right? I think the thing, the biggest takeaway, Joe, though, is what I heard the guys talking about. And I don't know if you heard. Did you hear the clip of Jordan Mailata talking about the culture of the players and the culture of what is going on in that locker room?
Unfortunately I missed that clip.
But so what he's talking about. You know what, Joe? Give me 2 seconds because I'm gonna try to get this up here because I think it's worth listening to.
Absolutely.
Because he's what he's talking about in the video is the culture of the team and how they are able to kind of foster that relationship between the guys that are, coming for, essentially the guys that could potentially be coming for their jobs. Joe, give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
I love our rookies. This is a great rookie class, especially in our line room. They work hard. And I told Miles, I told Cameron, and I told Drew, I don't care if you come for my job. Like, if you're better than me, you're going to be better than me. But I'm going to make it damn hard for you to reach that. I'm not going to kick you down. I said, that's not how it runs here. It's not how we do it. I bring you along because you're going to make me better. To the culture that I was welcomed into, I feel like I owe it to these rookies to bring them along. And I just told them straight up, if you're better than me, I'll vouch for you. But I'm going to make it damn hard.
Is there, like, if there's not a better embodiment of the culture, to hear that coming out of OTAs, that's my biggest takeaway. You're creating an environment that fosters guys to want to do better and to know that if they do better, that it'll be validated.
They'll be rewarded, right?
So, and in that room, you've got not a lot of there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for those guys to play at all, right? That O-line room, right? You've essentially got one position that's up for grabs on the entire offense, let alone the offensive line. But I think you look at the guys that are in that room, you're going to be able to essentially kind of absorb the maybe the inexperience of a Tyler Steen, right? But he's also had time to play spot starts at guard, has had to slide over to center sometimes. I love what I'm hearing from that quote and the environment that this coach has created in the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our winning formula.
Right.
And we've been on the cusp of winning with that formula for a few years now. It's just a matter of making sure, and they do all their due diligence and they do all their background and their interviews and their whole interview process, whether it's trades, free agency, draft. They make it known what the standard is and what the culture is here before they even get here. And those are the kind of players that they bring here. Besides the fact of like a guy like Bryce Huff, but or Hassan Reddick, but and obviously Huff's on his way out and Reddick's not here anymore. So it's about the team. It's about playing as a team. It's about playing for each other. And like Marlotta said, it's I know at some point I'm not going to be the guy, and I'm going to help you get better, be better. I'm going to put you in your place when you need to be, but it's for the greater good, and it's for us to win and to grow as a team. And it's just getting players to buy into that. That's why some teams don't have success, don't win in the playoffs, don't win Super Bowls, because they're not willing to make those kinds of sacrifices.
I think the formula is pretty simple, right? Like you when you look at when he talks about the environment that I was brought into, right? The environment, like he's a guy who was drafted and completely new to football,
right?
So, familiar with the locker room with his time in rugby in Australia, right? But like when you look at the environment that he has fostered on and off the field with guys like Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, right? Like with Landon Dickerson, right? Like they're in each other's weddings. They're creating 3 different Christmas albums. Like they have all fostered this relationship with each other where, it's almost like he was passed the torch, that like he's now moving into this leadership role. He's now moving into this and recognizes that his ability to be able to create those relationships where those guys rely on each other, like, it is a really important thing. And I think that's the thing that makes me not nearly as worried about that right guard spot.
Right.
Like whether it's Tyler Steen, whether it's Matt Pryor, whether they do something like. So the thing that I looked about with like the like when they drafted Drew Kendall, right? Drew Kendall was a center,
Hmm.
right? But Cam Jurgens was a center. But Cam Jurgens played guard because he was the best guy available. Because Jason Kelsey was still in year 14 playing at an all-world, level. If Drew Kendall's the best guy and he gets a chance to play in between Lane Johnson and Cam Jurgens,
Yep.
right? And learn the functions of that offense so that like if there's a situation where Cam Jurgens can't play, Drew Kendall slides in, right? Like, when I really like what I see, and especially for an offense that's going to bring back 10 of 11 starters from last year.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of people sleeping on what this team is bringing back from a team that had a pretty historically dominant season last year, both on offense and defense.
Absolutely. And the coaching staff, the ownership, Howie, it starts from the top and it trickles down. It's about consistency, continuity. You look at Jalen, and Jalen Hurts has been able to have consistency and success in winning with having a different offensive coach at least since Alabama, at least since college. And he still finds a way to win, finds a way to have elite success himself and as a team. And there's no reason why that would change or it could change. I mean, it could change, but it's not likely to change because it's just been a consistent trend of success and a winning culture, a winning environment. And he's like the ultimate, he never gets too high, he never gets too low. The guy is, some people say he's very vanilla, he's boring, he's cliche-ish or whatever. Dude, all he does is win. He's got the greatest winning mindset that you could ask for in a position like that.
Very much. Joe, can I give you a stat?
What's that?
Can I give you a stat?
Yeah, shoot.
Since his freshman year in college, and this was the tweet that I'm looking at is courtesy of Jeff Kerr from CBS from January 29th of 2025. So this is towards the end of that, that last year's season.
Right.
Since his freshman year of college, he's 88-20 as a starter. Here are the list of his OCs. In 2016, these are out of Alabama. He's got Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian, right? So he's got 2 in 1 year. In 2017, he's got Brian Dable and Mike Loxley. Again, 2 in 1 year. 2018, Mike Loxley, Josh Gaddis. Again, 2 in 1 year. 2019, Lincoln Riley. And then he gets drafted by the Eagles. Doug Peterson. And then in 2021, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen. And then in 2022, Shane Steichen. And then 23, Brian Johnson. 24, Kellen Moore. And now 25, right? Got another one, right? And when you look at that, right, like that's almost it's
no
borderline
yeah.
No, but in the thralls of all that,
winning
still wins, right? He is a guy, I feel like, Joe, who is going to constantly get but it doesn't ever look good.
Right. And that's still all you hear. That's all that is discussed and will probably be discussed his whole career, unless he wins 5 Super Bowls. It's exhausting because we hear it locally, we hear it nationally. It's all clickbait. It's all, it's all click. Maybe he's not the sexy, social guy. He's not, in the limelight and this and that and doing commercials.
I mean, Joe,
Does
for a guy,
commercials, but he's not the flash. He's not a flashy. He's the media loves
cover a
flash.
GQ,
They
right?
love
Like,
flash. They love
yeah,
flash. He's not a flashy guy. But
no,
who gives a shit when all you do is win?
yeah, right, Joe. And here's a prime example: the comments that came out recently from Joe Burrow. Right when the reporters in Cincinnati are asking Joe Burrow, like, what's the plan this year? What do you guys do to win? And he goes, look at what the Eagles are doing. Right? Like locking guys up early, getting guys taken care of,
Yeah.
getting guys paid, getting them in the building and keeping them in the building so that they can build consistency.
Yeah.
All the drama that you heard coming out of Cincinnati from that Cincinnati wide receiver room with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and who's going to get paid and who's going to be the higher paid guy and right, like you didn't see any of that.
That doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen here.
It doesn't happen here
Because they
so
get
like
it. They get it.
they get it. So on that note, Joe, like the defense is going to be young. But I got this feeling they're going to be young and really talented. Really excited for Quinnion Mitchell going into year 2, right? You see him. I think some of the reports from OTA saying that he's sliding into that Slay slot, but like he's a guy to me who like can play. Has shown you that he can play either side of the field. Like he might be a guy who would just follow your best receiver all over the field. Talk about Cooper DeJean, because Cooper DeJean is a guy now who conversation is now. Do you slide him inside? Do you keep him inside with how well he played and how productive he is? Is he a guy that, like, when they play with 2 DBs on the field, is he a guy that slides over and plays outside? Talk to me about what you hear and then what you're thinking.
You hear that. I think from what you hear and the stuff that's coming out, they may want him to do that on the outside. But they really only run. I think they're talking about him being on the outside base defenses. They don't really run the base defense a ton, but they want to see what they have. They want to see what they have. They want to see if he can play at that kind of level like he did in the slot. And right now, it's kind of like we're in an unsettled time right now because it's, what is it, May 31st? May 30th. I don't even know what the date is, but
The 31st.
We're right on the cusp of June 1st, which, guys can sign and not, you're not giving up picks. Guys can sign and it's not going to hit your cap. So there's still situations that are probably going to happen. And I don't know if that's going to directly affect that specific position, because I don't know. I don't know what their standing is on. Do they want to make a move and bring on a starting corner, or do they want to slide Coop to the outside and bring in a slot? Adoree Jackson. I don't know if Adoree can play the slot. I've never seen Keeley in the slot. So there's some situations that need to be addressed in the next few days. We might even see stuff come out today. But I think that he is good enough, smart enough, and
gosh darn it, people like him.
He could play. He could play outside. I think he could play outside because he's that good of a player. He's that smart and he's that athletic.
I think they see a guy that they don't want to take off the field.
Right.
And that's that's a really great problem to have. I think you're going to see the same kind of it's interesting to see a guy that's on your roster now who you could kind of see having the same type of year that Cooper DeJean had in Jahad Campbell, right? A guy who, had, and Cooper DeJean's injury last year kind of sidelined him after he got drafted. Jahad Campbell, like the circumstances are a little bit different, but I see the production projection for Jahad Campbell in a similar way that I see Cooper DeJean, right? Bring him along. You have the roster flexibility to be able to let him heal. But like the effect that Cooper DeJean had when he started playing and how the offenses had to change the way that they were going to play, I think Jahai Cable has that opportunity to be able to do the same thing, to be able to have the same type of effect when he gets on the field, whenever that is. Whether it's playing in the middle next to Zach Bond, whether it's playing off the edge,
Right.
whatever it is, I feel like they see him as kind of like that guy that you don't ever want to take off the field.
Absolutely.
So like that's a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Bring him along, let him get healthy. He was a top 10, top 15, draft pick talent and fell because of the injury. But the silly thing is like it's not this like degenerative injury that's going to catastrophically happen year after that you'd have to worry about year after year. It was a single isolated injury that once that injury heals, you can just assume that the re-injury
Right.
doesn't increase his chances of re-injuring it again. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited
Yeah.
for what this team can be, what the projections are. It's just it's exciting to be able to look at where that could be. Now, the Josh Huff, Joe, you kind of you have been talking about Josh Huff and the movement of that. I saw some stuff. I was
Agent
listening
Zero.
to Agent Zero. Yeah, again, not a guy that could not be
More
more
worthless.
fitting of his number.
Yeah.
A guy, and where did I see this? Hold on, because these were some
How do you
funny
get that
stats.
fast? How do you get that bad that fast, Don?
These were some funny stats, Joe. You ready? In a Dallas game where Kenny Pickett saw snaps, Josh Huff was a healthy scratch. Kenny Pickett got the start against Dallas, and Huff was a healthy scratch. And then a guy who was your biggest financial investment in the offseason, a guy that you invested at the time north of $50 million, is a healthy scratch for the playoffs.
Yeah. That was a big swing and a miss. Like I don't know.
Big swing and a miss. So Joe, I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah, oh yeah. I commented. I don't know if you saw my comment.
Here's the picture that he
on Twitter.
I must have missed it, but this is
I was like, two. That's one more sack than you had for the whole season. I was a sack and a half, but it was close enough. It's like, dude, how do you get mad? You didn't even, you didn't do anything. You got paid, and you didn't do shit. You can't be mad, man. Like,
no,
you didn't do anything.
And listen, and Joe, this is where I say kudos to Howie Roseman, right? Because you know that other GMs in the league don't just make this decision and move on, not even 12 months after it happens.
Yeah.
They have they have structured things and with the financial flexibility to be able to just say, you know what, we swung and missed, but we're going to move on from this guy because we know that that the culture of having a guy that's getting paid a lot of money and is not even dressing is not a great culture thing to have in the building.
Nope.
But also like just moving on, like no hard feelings. Just, I mean, we'll make the zero jokes for forever. But like knowing that like you have the ability to be able to move on and just move on. And the fact that he's connecting back with Robert Saleh, which is a guy that, with the Jets and I heard Dave Zangaro talking, Joe, like, and what Dave said was pretty on point. Like, wouldn't surprise me if he goes out to San Francisco and is a more productive player in a system that might allow him to just be on the field to rush the passer.
Right. I mean,
it just wasn't going to work here.
The only way to go for that dude is up. I mean, you can't. I don't think it could get any worse. When we made the move to bring him on, I was excited. I thought that we would
very much so
get some good and some decent production with the guys that we already had on the team. already. So, it just wasn't a good fit. Wasn't the scheme or whatever or his mindset. But man, I don't think any of us expected it to be as bad as it was. But hey, shout out to Howie, unloading him, saving money, redid his deal, and I don't remember what round pick we're gonna get, but I don't think it mattered because if they hadn't at some point, I think he probably would have been cut anyway. So the fact that we saved money and added a draft pick, Howie Magic strikes again.
Yeah, it's going to be, Joe, from everything that I read, it's going to be what they're describing as like a mid-round pick.
Right.
So my guess is probably in that 4, 5, 6. Maybe it's conditional on production, whether it's 4, 5,
snaps
or 6. Who knows?
All that stuff, right?
Right. But like, so
still a miracle.
I'm gonna read you the report from Schefter, right? It says so before the trade can't get finalized until June 1st. Because that way, and this is another Howie thing, right? That way they can split the cap hit between this past season and this next season, right? So it reduces the cap hit, right? Next. So the Eagles restructure his contract this week. He was set to make $17 million fully guaranteed, but the Eagles now will only take on $9 million in salary, leaving the 49ers responsible for the remaining $8 million.
Win. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Right? Everybody wins. Like you're not paying him as much. You're getting the cap relief. You're getting a guy who just wasn't toxic, but wasn't it literally just became not.
We don't
just be.
He could
just
be.
Became
he could have been. He could have been. He could have been an issue. He could have. We don't know. We don't know.
We don't know because we didn't hear it. But like,
right, we didn't hear it. And maybe he wasn't. But the fact that he couldn't have been happy. The fact that they wouldn't dress.
I can't imagine.
It just was not it's not something that you want to have in your locker room.
No. And Joe, when you are in a situation where you're not dressing for like you go the whole year and your team gets to the Super Bowl and they elect not to dress, you got a sweatsuit instead of your uniform. Like that's bad. I can imagine there's some probably there is some pretty bitter feelings if I had to guess. And I'm just thinking about that myself, right? Like if that's me,
I would be pissed.
It takes a big person to swallow the fact that like you got paid a lot of money, you weren't productive. And I'm not in the locker room. I'm not down there reporting every day. So I don't know the work that's being put in or the efforts that are being made to try to get him on the field. All I know is that the guy that was in charge and Vic Fangio said, no, thank you. And basically just said like, just hang out over here. And you saw the production of the guys that were taking over his snacks, guys like Thomas Booker, guys like Jay Lux Hunt, right? Those guys came in and were really productive in the same exact role.
Right.
And you saw Josh Huff, when he got on the field, just be invisible.
Right. Maybe he didn't want to adjust. Maybe he didn't want to adjust. Maybe he didn't want to change.
Very true.
Because, I would look at a lot of the play that he played with when he was on the Jets. He was from what I saw, I mean, I may have missed some stuff too, but he was a hand in the ground kind of guy or a 4-point stance kind of guy. He wasn't the stand up. Sure. He wasn't a big and then stand up rushing. And that's the Eagles. That's how the Eagles rush. Both of their rushers almost all the time are stand up rushing. I don't know or think that he wanted to do it obviously he was way less effective, as you saw when he was on the field. He was pretty much an invisible player. So
most definitely.
And I don't know. I don't think Vic brought him on. I think Howie brought him on. I don't even know if Vic was here yet. The whole timeline of all that. I don't know if he was a Vic guy. If he was, I don't think they would have brought him on. So.
Listen, speaking of Vic Fangio, guys, Joe, I'm going to give you two guys to keep your eye on for. I'm going to say maybe middle to post training camp. Two former Vic Fangio guys.
Oh, I know. Go ahead, Don. I'm excited. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't want to steal your thunder, man.
Ow. The guys that I'm keeping an eye on that are still out there that are the one guy is like openly campaigning he like sits in a lawn chair right outside Novacare with his bags like ready to walk in Justin Simmons.
Yep.
Right? Like the safety who's played with Vic Fangio in Denver. And then the other guy is Von Miller.
Yep.
Right? I think they're waiting to see what they have because both of those positions on this roster are really young. So I think they're in a position where, like, if they get through training camp and they like what they see, then they kind of take a step back. But I think if they know that this roster is kind of built for going back to the Super Bowl, that those are two guys that are a very easy add to a system that they're already familiar with, and guys that are veterans, guys that can be productive. Those are two guys that I'm just kind of keeping my eye on.
Yeah, agreed. And I didn't I knew that's what you were going to say. I mean, Justin Simmons. There was Justin Simmons talk all of last year. That they were going to pull the trigger and make a move on him for last season, and he wound up signing with Atlanta. But I mean, the price tag can't be that high. I mean, I think he's 31 now. We're going young, but you can never have enough depth, and you can never have enough guys that are plug and play. Yeah. Justin Simmons is a plug and play. Von Miller is a plug and play. Like he said, I think he had a quote yesterday or the last couple of days. Dude, I could roll out of bed, brush my teeth, and go right onto the field. So, and he knows the system. Yeah, he's definitely an older player, but for what you're going to need and what you're going to get out of him, and the locker room, he won a Super Bowl, the Vic connection. All it's going to do is add to what you have and make that defensive line fresher. Rotational players. That's how they won. That's how they won last year. That's how they won when they, won Super Bowl 52. They had guys that they could continually roll out there that made an impact. Von Miller's not going to have gaudy sack numbers, but you know what? He's going to get the quarterback off his spot. He's going to make him make errant throws, and he's still going to, he'll still probably give you five or six sacks for the season.
And he also brings a little bit of veteran experience to that.
Absolutely.
To those rooms. And it kind of gives me like the year that they bring in Ndamukong Suh and they bring in Linval Joseph and they bring in those guys that are veteran guys that have the experience that come into the room and just be really productive. And I think those are just two guys to keep my eye on.
Absolutely.
And this just came across, right. And I'm not sure about the full parameters of all of this, but the players that the Eagles acquired using the picks from the Carson Wentz trade.
I did see that. Yeah.
Did you see this? Right. The four guys that are in this graphic
I did.
are Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Jalen Carter, and Cooper DeJean.
All home runs.
Right? All
A+ home run moves. Super Bowl caliber moves.
Yeah. Well, it's moves like that, Joe, that put you in a position like you did last year to be able to win what you won when you won.
Yeah.
Just nutty.
The single greatest draft that Howie has ever had, and probably the single greatest draft maybe in Eagles history.
I mean, Joe, you're not lying. He has really put himself in a position to, cement his legacy. And they are just their craziest thing is that they're still on the ascent. Like there's still so much more room to go until you hit that pinnacle. Like the fact that like you had guys after the Super Bowl talking about like it was all about the journey, and I'm excited about the next journey. That's like that's a really cool thing.
That's the mindset. That's the motto. That starts at the top. Once they've figured it out. Howie has kind of figured out how to draft and what kind of player to draft, and free agencies, trades, you know, AJ Brown's diva. AJ Brown doesn't like it here. Da 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 da. Okay, you re-signed a deal. Philly's my home now. I love Philly. Dude won a Super Bowl. Let's get back to work. You know,
Right?
some people
It's
are just built that way. Some people just are they grind. They're all about the grind. Jalen
Joe,
Hurts,
it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. The culture in this building allows for that.
right?
And it not only allows for it, but it encourages it.
Yeah,
You know, and like I look at a guy like CJ Gardner Johnson. When he was here, he was a really good player and and really productive. When he wasn't here, he was a different player.
yeah.
Listen, Joe,
That's the truth. That's the truth.
for our last topic, right, Joe? We know that whenever there are good things going on in sports, normally that correlates to a different part of our life with our pets,
Mm.
right? And we see a lot of names of players, right? We've seen, you know, the Harpers, we've seen the Hertz, we've now seen a lot of dogs with the name Barkley, right? We right, like we've seen people take these really prominent players and incorporate them into different parts of our life. Joe, there was a story that came out. There's a family there's a family in Los Angeles, Joe. Um, they're two Los Angeles-based Eagles fans who just recently had a child. The child, her name, Sirianni. Joe, that's next level fandom.
Yes.
That is like that. Like we've seen people take iterations of their players, right, and try to incorporate them into like middle names or nicknames. But to name your child, to take the last name of your Super Bowl winning head coach and make that the name of your child for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
that's some next level stuff, Joe. So
Yeah.
new bird in the nest, Sirianni.
There you go.
Right? They said the nickname is either Siri or Nanny,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Go Birds.
Go Birds, right? The middle name is Go Birds, Sirianni, Go Birds.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cool. That was just that was a cool little fun thing. So like, have you ever done that, Joe? Do you have any? I know we both kind of dabble in the many of animal creatures in our in our homes. Do you have any pets or former pets with names related to sports players?
I do, and at the time I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and he was going to be here forever, and he was just going to be, we were going to be a top team and challenging the playoffs in the Super Bowl, and then he went Carson Wentz.
Ah,
Our pit Brutus is Brutus Carson Bucci.
God,
And now I'm
God.
like, damn it! Are there any other cool Are there any other cool Carsons out there? I'm like Carson Daly. I can't. And I'm like, I can't. Johnny Carson. I'm like, I got to come up with a new story of why his middle name is Carson now.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we are very pro human people names for animals. I've broached the conversation a couple times. I haven't been able to kind of like dig in real deep on being successful. I think I need a male animal. Right now we're sitting with all female animals.
Yeah, you do. You need to get.
So we need to kind of broach that and then figure out a way to whether it's a middle name, whether it's a whether it's a first name, nickname, I need something to, wrap that Eagles bandana around their collar and, just incorporate another aspect of fandom into a different part of our lives.
Sure. I mean, and there's names that are Eagle related that are adult, human name related, or that aren't too off the wall. Like the name Sirianni, I think is not like super common, but I think it sounds good, and it's not like, oh well, that was a former Eagle player. Now, as the child gets older and says, oh, who was I named after? Then that's a whole different ballgame. That's a whole different story. But you could do Lane from Lane Johnson. You could do Kelsey's a very common name, but it's not a common spelling. Because it's a last name. But there's a lot of play. I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to be able to execute this. You know what? You got to push on. You got to push on. You got to push through it. You'll make it work, and I'm sure she'll get on board.
Just keep pushing.
Yeah, you just got to push on, man.
Just keep pushing on.
Until you get vote, and there's enough votes where you can't, but you got to keep going, man. You got to keep going.
Well, listen, Joe, I don't want to get outnumbered, but we can vote on it.
What? Just you and I?
Listen, I've got some time to be able to swing some votes before we go down that route. So,
well, do the kids get the vote? Because the kids will be on your side, right? Bribe them.
Oh, most definitely.
If you got to bribe, Don, you bribe.
Joe, 100%. 100%. Absolutely.
See?
Joe,
we'll make it work.
Oh, my God. Anything else? Final thoughts on the way out?
Really, man. Get your sleep. Young people, old people, middle-aged people. Get your sleep. I'll be 47 next week.
Let's go.
I'll sleep as much as I can.
Listen, Joe.
Don't put it off, folks. Get your rest, man. Get your body right. Get yourself in shape. Get your mind right. Reset the batteries, recharge, and
most definitely.
Right, man.
Most definitely. Listen, Joe. What you missed before the show was that Joe and I discussed our unique superpower of being able to fall asleep anywhere, anytime, in any of the most uncomfortable positions. So, getting your rest is really important. And on the way out, as Joe takes a nap, go Birds.
Go Birds.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.